Hi, I'm Sam, I'm a paediatric dietitian and today I'm going to be cooking a tofu katsu curry with British quinoa. So first we're going to be making our flax egg, and to do this we're going to be taking 2 tablespoons of the ground flaxseed, popping that into a bowl, and then measuring some of our oat drink, about 60 ml initially. And the whole point of this is when we mix the oat drink with the flax seeds, it's going to thicken up. And we're going to use this with the tofu later to coat it with those lovely panko breadcrumbs. And the idea is we're going to set this aside for about 15 minutes and that should give it a chance to thicken. And now we can get on with the katsu sauce. So here I have my frying pan on a medium heat. It's really good to choose one that's slightly deeper because we are going to be cooking the sauce in this frying pan. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of rapeseed oil to my pan. Now, rapeseed is a really good choice. First of all, rapeseed is grown in the UK and it's a great source of omega-3 fats as well, which, as we know, can be low on a vegan diet. Now to this oil, we're going to add our chopped onions. And these are going to fry for a few minutes. So traditionally, in a katsu curry, you would use something like chicken. And today we're using tofu instead, which is a much more sustainable option. And now it's time to add our garlic, our crushed ginger, and our carrots. So here I have about 1 inch of grated ginger, about 4 cloves of garlic here, and then about 2 carrots that have been chopped into cubes. It's important that we chop these quite small because otherwise they won't cook well. And the idea is at the end of this dish, we're going to pop our sauce into a blender and it will thicken up really, really well. So in terms of sustainability, plant-based options typically have lower emissions compared to their animal-based counterparts. There are some concerns about soya and deforestation, and tofu is of course made from soya beans, but the majority of soya grown on the planet is actually for animal feeds. And if you're purchasing things like tofu from the supermarket or any other soy products made for human consumption, they're usually grown in areas such as Italy or Canada, and they're sourced from sustainable sources. This has had about 5 minutes now, so it's time to add the spices. Here I've got 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric and 1/2 teaspoon of garam masala. That goes in there. I've got about 1 tablespoon of mild curry powder. And we're going to fry that off for just a minute. Make sure the spices don't burn, because you don't want your curry tasting bitter. The great thing about this katsu curry is you can steam any type of vegetable alongside it. So you can follow the seasons in terms of what you choose. Now we're nearly done with our sauce. Next step is to add our tomato puree. There's about 1 tablespoon there. Our mirin, which is a sweet rice wine type vinegar. If you can't find mirin, that's fine. You can use maple syrup instead. You can add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. And finally, we've got about 500 ml of vegetable stock. We're going to leave this now for about 15 minutes to simmer, and you'll know it's done because the carrot will be fully cooked. Now we're going to bread our tofu. If you want an easy life, the best thing to do is choose a firm or an extra firm variety, which are most of the ones that we find at supermarkets these days. But if you do get a softer set tofu, like a medium set tofu for instance, you will have to press that first with a tofu press or the old-fashioned way with plates and books. And one of the great things about tofu is not only is it an amazing protein source, it contains all 9 essential amino acids in adequate amounts, it's also a brilliant source of calcium for vegans and plant-based people. So this is the fun part. If you've got kids, get them involved because it's really good fun. So first we're going to take our tofu and pop it in the flour. Now make sure that's really, really well coated on all sides. And then we're going to dip it into our flax egg. So you can see it's thickened quite a lot since earlier. And the great thing about using flax seeds is they're a really great source of omega-3. And omega-3s can be lacking in plant-based and vegan diets. So by adding this to the oat drink, we're increasing the amount of those essential fatty acids in the recipe. Now after it's in the flax egg, we're going to pop it into the panko breadcrumbs. You can see you can coat it really, really well. Get it nicely covered. And then once that's covered, pop it onto a plate. And now it's time to cook our quinoa. And to make quinoa is super easy, just as you would do with rice really. Now for each person you'll need roughly 1/3 of a cup of quinoa to 2/3 of a cup of water. And if you want, you can fry it off a little bit beforehand. You get more of a toasted flavour that way. And we're going to let that reach the boil before I then cover it with a lid and let it simmer for 15 minutes on a very, very low heat. Rice is the usual option for a dish like this, but one of the issues with rice is it uses a lot of water in the growing process and releases a lot of methane gas as well. So quinoa is a really good substitute for rice. But again, one of the problems with quinoa is it tends to be grown in South America. So deforestation is a concern, and also the air miles shipping it from other countries to the UK. This is why British quinoa is a really great option. But if you're not keen on quinoa, you could have wheat noodles, you could even do potato wedges if you wanted to. Our curry sauce is cooking, the quinoa's been covered and it's on a lower heat now, so we're ready to do our katsu tofu. I've got my saucepan on a medium-high heat. I'm using rapeseed oil again, and I'm going to get my breaded tofu and just gently place that into the oil. And you'll know that it's ready because it starts to sizzle straight away. We're going to do 2 at a time. We don't want to overcrowd it. We don't want to take the temperature of the oil down too much. I think it's about time to flip our tofu. You can see there it's turned a really nice golden colour. Our quinoa's had 15 minutes. I'm going to take it off the heat and let that rest for a further 5 minutes. And our katsu curry sauce is now ready to blend. You can use a stick blender, or if you have a blender like this at home, that's absolutely fine as well. And this is the point where you will also season it with a bit of salt and a little bit of pepper as well. So now it's time to cut our tofu. Get a really nice crispiness there with the panko breadcrumbs. And we're going to assemble our dish. First of all with the British quinoa, and then we're going to just lie our tofu on top there. And finish with our katsu sauce. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without spring onions and a good helping of coriander. And here you have it, our sustainable tofu katsu curry.